doesn't appear so.
So that answers our question. It was not picked up that day, was it?
That's correct.
Okay. Detective, you did not go into the backyard, did you, to take pictures?
I wasn't the one taking pictures, and I don't recall going into the backyard.
You don't recall anybody going in the backyard?
I don't recall myself going into the backyard.
Do you recall anybody else going into the backyard?
No, I don't.
Were any of the pictures that the state showed you of the backyard?
No.
I'll show you what's been marked as State Exhibit 256 and ask you, what was the purpose for taking this picture?
Document evidence of the butter knife.
Okay. Was it also to document evidence of the drain and the food in the drain?
Mostly for the evidence marker of the knife.
Isn't it true, Detective Marr, that you wrote in your report that Miss Jennifer Rosenbaum told you that in the drain was the chicken that had been spit up?
Yes.
And she asked you to collect it, and you said it deteriorates, so you can't collect it, correct? Thank you. Oh, one more question, Detective Marr. Are you aware that Jennifer Rosenbaum has arthritis?
Objection, relevance.
They put in the icy hot water.
You can answer this.
Were you aware?
No, I was not.
Thank you.
Very briefly. After the search warrant was executed, were the Rosenbaums allowed to return into their home?
Yes, they were allowed to move freely around the home.
So once you all left, they had free access to their home, correct?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. You can step down.
Yes, sir.
And any objection to this witness being excused?
No.
And you're free to go. The state calls next witness.
State calls Jennifer Green.
Jennifer Green.
Yes. Raise your hand, please, one. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Put your hand down. Please state your true and correct name for the record.
Jennifer Green.
And what kind of work do you do?
I am a crime scene investigator, latent print examiner with Henry County.
And tell us a little bit more about that. What do your job duties include?
Our job duties are to go out to various types of crime scenes and process them. And depending on the type of crime scene, we'll do photographs, we'll do videos, we'll do sketches. We process evidence for fingerprints, we'll collect DNA, we package evidence, we'll submit evidence to different places if they're needed to go, like the GBI or ATF for further evaluation. We also compare and analyze latent prints.
And did you have any role in the investigation regarding Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
And what was your role in this in the investigation?
I was requested by Cobb County DA's office to come do a presumptive test for blood on 2 items that they were looking at that they saw reddish-brown stains on.
Okay. And you said the Cobb County DA's office, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall when that request was made of you?
That was February 7th, 2018.
And did you still have access to the evidence that they were requesting some additional testing be done on?
No, so I did not take custody of the evidence at all. I brought the presumptive kit to the room that they were looking at, so the evidence stayed in the custody of the property and evidence technician, and I just took a sample to test it to see if it was positive or negative.
And was the evidence technician, were they present the entire time that you were doing your testing?
Yes.
And did you take some photographs during the testing that we were talking about?
I did not.
You did not? Do you know if any photographs were ultimately taken?
I do not.
Okay. Do you recall what the photographs, do you recall what the towel itself looked like?
Yes, there was a tan towel.
Okay. I'm going to show you states 306. Do you recognize what we're looking at in states 306?
That is a bag with the case number on it.
Okay. And is that, do you see state, do you look behind you, do you see states 302?
Yes.
And is that a photograph of states 302?
Yes.
And is this the bag that you did some additional testing on the contents?
Well, the contents were out of the bag when I did the testings.
Okay. But this is the same bag that they came from?
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay. Do you recall? Do you recognize states 309 and 310 and 311?
Yes.
What do you recognize them to be?
That's the tan towel with the reddish-brown stain on it.
Okay. And is that the towel that you did some additional testing on?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I would move to admit states 309, 310, and 311 into evidence.
Admitted.
I'm going to show you on the screen what's been admitted as states 309. What are we looking at here that was of interest to your portion of the investigation?
That is the tan towel, and I can see two different areas on this spot with the reddish brown stains.
There's a pointer right there on the ledge if you want to point to the areas that you were talking about.
Right here and right here.
Okay. And now you said you did some presumptive testing. Tell us a little bit more about that.
We use a LimPV, which is the brand, blood-stained green quick check test. And what that is a presumptive test for mammal blood. It does react with many different types of mammal blood, so it's not specific for human blood, but it does give us an idea of, yes, this is testing positive for blood. It needs to go for further testing for DNA and to make sure it's actually human blood. It reacts with hemoglobins in blood.
So this test that you do is simply the first step, and if it's positive, then you send it somewhere else.
Yes.
Where would you send that?
If it does come back positive, it would go to the GBI, and they would do further testing to make sure it's human blood, and then to tell the source.
I'll show you stage. Oh, it's been a minute. It's stage 310. What are we looking at in stage 310?
That's just a close-up photograph of the reddish brown stain,
And how about stage 311?
and that's a close-up photograph of the other reddish brown stain.
After you did the presumptive test, was the towel returned to the evidence bag?
Yes.
Now, did you have any further role in the investigation of this particular case?
No, sorry, I did not.
Nothing further.
No questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're excused.
Thank you.
It's just an objection. Hearing no objection, you're excused. Okay, state calls next witness.
State called Michelle Johnson.
Michelle Johnson. Johnson.
Please raise your right hand. You swear upon the testimony you're about to give to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please lower your hand and have a seat. Can you please state and spell your first and last name?
Michelle Johnson, Michelle Johnson.
And Ms. Johnson, how are you employed with?
I'm a crime scene tech at the Henry County Police Department.
And how long have you been a crime scene tech with the Henry County Police Department?
Nearly 6 years.
Okay. And what do your duties require you to do?
When we go out to scenes, we document the scenes with photographs. We'll also be responsible for sometimes fingerprinting and all the collection of evidence and ensuring the proper chain of custody.
And at some point in November of 2015, were you called out to the Piedmont Henry Hospital?
Yes.
Why were you called out there?
Can you repeat that?
Why were you called out to the hospital?
Oh, I was informed that there was excuse me, that there was an infant that I needed to take photographs of.
And when you got out there, what did you do then?
When I first got there, Sergeant Peden asked me to photograph a 4-year-old.
And do you recall that 4-year-old's name?
Yeah,
What was her name?
Millie Place.
And I'm showing you what's been marked as state exhibit. Starting at 315. Do you have to do any other photographs besides taking photographs of Millie Place in this thing?
Yes, ma'am.
What other photographs did you take?
I took photographs of Laila Daniel.
And was those all at Piedmont Henry?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was present when you were taking these photographs?
Present with Miller, there was 2 social workers in the room with me.
Prior to going in and taking photographs of Millie, did you have any information in regards to the case at all?
No, very limited.
And in regards to Layla, did you have any information?
No.
When you say very limited, what was the limited information that you had when you went into the room with Millie Place?
Miller, I was just asked to see if there was any injuries or bruises or anything on her, and just to take photographs of them.
And did you have any conversation with Millie when you went in the room to take photographs of her?
Very little.
What was the conversation that you had with her?
Well, I'm sorry, let me repeat that. No, I didn't have a conversation with her. I just heard her repeat something to one of the social workers.
Okay. Was that during the time that you were in there?
Yes, ma'am.
And was the social worker asking her questions?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you hear Millie say?
I just heard her repeat that someone called Anthony had touched her Lulu. That's what she referred it to.
Did you have any conversation with Millie in regards to the bruises on her?
No, ma'am, very little.
Did you ask her any questions about it?
No, ma'am.
When you say very little, what does that mean?
I would just ask her where, could I look for her bruises and where they were. I think it was the social workers that was doing all the questions.
Okay. And I'm showing you right now what's been marked as State's Exhibit 315 to 340. If you could take a look at these and tell me if you recognize them.
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you recognize states 315 through 340?
There was photographs I took of Miller.
And do they accurately depict the photographs that you took?
Yes.
I'd ask that states exhibits 315 through 340 be tendered into evidence at this time.
Any objection?
No objection.
Are you done with the
I just asked for the approach just briefly.
Okay. Can you take a second to find it?
Yes, Judge. Judge, are we looking for those? May I continue with this witness? On the ones that have already been tendered with the states 315 through the states 339.
Have they all been tendered in 313?
315, I'm sorry, 314, 315 through 340, I'd ask that they be tendered into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
And then I'm
The
going
ones
to...
that you're concerned about have been taken out?
Yes, yes, they have, Judge.
Okay, they're admitted.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as states number 350. .341 through States Exhibit 357. If you can look at these. Do you recognize those?
Yes, ma'am.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of what you observed on November the 17th at Piedmont Hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll start with, you can get the lights. Show me what's marked as states number 315. What is depicted in states 315?
And that's a picture of the side of Miller's face.
Did you know any bruising or injuries in states exhibit 315?
Yes.
And if you could, I think there's a pointer in front of you with the blue handle on it.
Oh,
If you could just point out what area we're speaking of, and if you step down, just watch your step when you step down.
okay. I'm sorry, am I not using this right?
Oh, you can, oh, it's not a laser, it's old school. You just have to say.
Okay, I thought you said a laser one. Okay. And there was one other discoloration on the
And if you could keep your voice up so the court reporter and the rest of the jurors can hear you as well.
There was a discoloration on the far right hand side.
And states number exhibit 316.
There's some little red marks on a neck.
In states exhibit 317, what are we looking at here?
There was a little discoloration on the earlobe.
In states exhibit 318.
This was a red area, picture of a red area on the side of the face.
And states exhibit number 319.
This is just a closer picture of the little discoloration on the back of my earlobe.
And states exhibit number 322.
This picture is a close-up of the scale of the picture and with a discoloration on the earlobe.
And states exhibit 323.
This was a picture of the back of her ear with a little red area.
And states exhibit 324.
And this is a closer picture of the scale of the red area on the back of her ear.
And states exhibit 325.
This was a closer picture of the discoloration on the forehead.
And states exhibit 327.
This just was an overall picture of a face, the side of the face.
And State's Exhibit 328.
This was a closer picture of some discoloration on her neck.
And State's Exhibit 334. What are you looking at here?
This photograph was the top of Millie's head, and there was a scaly place right here.
And State's Exhibit 335.
That's a close-up picture with a scale at the top of the head with that scaly patch.
And State's Exhibit 336.
This is just an overall picture of, close-up picture of right front of the body.
What part of Millie's body did you take pictures of?
All of it.
In State's Exhibit 337.
Just a picture of the right arm.
And State's Exhibit 339.
A closer picture of the top of her hand and her hand.
And State's Exhibit 340.
A picture of the palm of her hand.
And State's Exhibit 341. What are we looking at here?
A close-up picture with a scale of a little red area on one of the fingers.
And what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 351?
Just a photograph of the legs.
In State's Exhibit 357.
This was a close-up photograph with an area underneath her ankle bone.
In State's Exhibit number 81, what is depicted in that? This has already been entered in previous into
This was just a close-up photograph of the buttocks with different areas on, and an area on the side of the back.
And if we may approach just a moment.
Yes.
Mark the State's Exhibit 334, 335, and 346. If you can look at those and tell me if you recognize them.
Yes, ma'am.
And do they fairly and accurately depict what you observed on November the 17th?
Yes, they do.
And I'm also going to show you State's Exhibits 368, 69, 70, and 71, if you can look at those. And do they fairly and accurately depict what you observed on November the 17th?
Yes, ma'am.
State would ask the State's Exhibits 344 through 346 be admitted into evidence, and States 368 through 371 be admitted into evidence.
Admitted.
And if you could tell me what we're looking at in States 344.
This was just a photograph of the front of Miller.
And did you observe any injuries or bruising in this photograph?
I did.
And if you could just point that out.
There was this discoloration on the inside of her arm, and you can see a bit on the side, a bit of a discoloration on the hip.
And States 346, what's depicted in there?
This is a close-up picture with the scale of the discoloration on her arm.
And States 368, what is depicted in that?
This was a close-up picture of the hip, outside of the hip.
And States Exhibit 369,
This is just a close-up picture of the scale of the area on her hip and the side of the back.
after you were done taking the photographs of Millie, did you have any more involvement in this case?
Yes.
And what other involvement did you have?
I then had to take photographs of Layla.
And besides taking photographs of Millie and Layla, did you also take photographs of the home as well?
Yes. No.
Any other involvement in this case?
No.
Nothing further at this time.
Okay.
I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Watch your step. And any objections to witness being excused?
Now I'm going to step down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please bar next witness.
Oh, the next witness is going to be pretty lengthy.
I see. All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our lunch break now. We'll see you back here at 1:15. 1:15.
I think about the truth, so help you God.
I do.
If you could please state and spell your name for the record.
It's Kelly, Kelley, Jimison, Jimison.
Now, in 2015, did you go by the name Kelly Gaskin?
I did.
And how do you spell Gaskin?
Gaskin.
And how are you currently employed?
As a pediatric nurse practitioner with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta in the department of the Stephanie V. Blank Center for Safe and Healthy Children.
And how long have you worked there?
12 and a half years.
What is the Stephanie V. Blank Center?
It is a child advocacy center.
And what are your duties at the Stephanie V. Blank Center?
I diagnose, treat, and evaluate children when there is a concern for physical or sexual abuse.
And were your duties the same as they are now on November 20th, 2015?
They were.
Prior to working at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, where did you work?
I worked at Hugh Spalding Hospital, which was not affiliated with Children's at that time and was part of Grady Health System.
How long did you work there?
10 years.
What were your job duties there?
I was also a pediatric nurse practitioner working in an emergency room setting.
And at, I believe you said Hugh Spalding?
Correct.
Did you also perform physical and sexual exams on children?
Yes.
Now, at the Stephanie V. Blank Center, do you conduct the sexual abuse and physical abuse exams on children?
Yes.
And approximately how many total exams have you done when there's been concerns of child physical abuse?
In the thousands.
And does that include your time at Hugh Spalding?
No.
So that's just at the Stephanie V. Blank Center.
Correct.
Now, how do patients generally come to the Stephanie V. Blank Center?
One of two ways. Either they are seen acutely when there is something that has very recently happened within potentially 72 hours in the emergency room setting, and we're called in as consultants, or they are scheduled in our outpatient clinic that is located on the campus of Scottish Rite.
I want to call your attention to November 20 of 2015. Did you perform a physical examination on Millie Place?
I did.
And how did she come into your center?
She came in with a defects caseworker after a concern was raised following the death of her 2-year-old sibling, and they were requesting examination and evaluation for concern of physical injuries.
Did Millie have a scheduled appointment, or did she come in through the ER?
She has scheduled appointment.
And at this time, I tender states Exhibit 372 in evidence.
Amendment 372.
Those are Millie's medical records for November 20, 2015. Now, when we talk about a patient's history in the context we are now, what does that mean?
A patient's history of what we consider the present illness are the specific complaints, signs, symptoms, or concerns that are being brought forth or why the patient is seeking medical attention.
And in this case, who provided you with that history?
The caseworker from Henry County Defects that was present.
And generally, what was the history provided to you?
I'm going to refer to my note, if that's okay.
That'd be fine.
It was not a very specific history. There was not a lot of information known to the caseworker, who I believe had just been put onto this case. Again, there was a sibling that was deceased. There was concern for non-accidental injury with that sibling, and therefore, and as is typical, precautionary exams are often conducted on siblings that are in the same home.
May I approach the witness here?
May.
Ms. Jemison, I'm going to give you what's previously been marked as State's Exhibits 373 through 382. If you could just take a look at those. Do you recognize those photographs?
I do.
And how do you recognize them?
I took them during her examination.
And does Exhibits 373 through 382 accurately reflect Millie's appearance on November 20, 2015?
Yes.
This time in tender states Exhibits 373 through 382 into evidence.
Admitted.
Permission to publish.
Recall.
I'm putting 373 on the screen. Why did you take this picture here?
That was just a way to correctly identify the patient by name and date of birth and medical record number.
And now 374. What are we looking at?
That is the face of the patient.
Why do you take the face of the patient?
Also as an identifier.
Now I want to turn your attention to Millie's left arm. When you observed Millie's left arm, do you note or have any concerns?
Yes, there was a bruise.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 375. Is this the bruise that you noted on the left arm?
It is.
And what was concerning to you about that bruise?
Refer to my note for a brief overview. The size of it, that it was a fairly significant bruise. Nothing other than that. The location wasn't necessarily concerning. There was no pattern that I had recognized.
Now, did Millie ever tell you how she got that injury?
She did not herself.
Now, I'm going to turn your attention to Millie, the right side of Millie's face. What, if anything, was concerning to you about the right side of Millie's face?
There was significant trauma to the right side of her face, including areas of petechiae, which is a specific way of describing an injury that is caused by small blood vessels or broken capillaries that are just under the surface of the skin. So it's just a classification of a type of injury. There was also an area of, I have documented here as ecchymosis, which is the medical term for bruising, over the jaw, and that was concerning. And there were also injuries around, on, and behind her ear, which was also concerning.
I'm going to take those one by one. As to the side of Millie's neck, I'm going to put on the 378. Is this the injuries that you observed?
Yes.
I think there's a pointer, I believe, right there. This is sort of hard to see sometime on the screen. So if you could point to the area that you were noting on the neck.
Okay, so right here, this is an area of petechiae. The coloring is not great, so it's a little bit distorted there. So that would be the area in question.
And how does one get petechiae?
Petechiae is caused by a high velocity impact, so a striking type motion or force, something with a high force that strikes the area.
And I'm going to put on the screen States Exhibit 377. What in 377 did you note?
There's some petechial injury, again here on the side of the jaw. Again, it's a little bit distorted with the coloring. And I see also that it's not very apparent right there, but that was also an area of concern.
Now, in terms of the face and the neck, was Millie able to tell you how she received those injuries?
I can't recall that she gave me a specific history. I know that what had been reported was that it was an injury from gymnastics, but there was no specific incident reported that would have accounted for these injuries.
And were these injuries at all concerning for physical abuse?
Yes.
And how come?
The location, anything that is on the face, particularly the ears, the neck, those are areas that are well protected. There are also areas that the ears and behind the ears are not overly exposed, and so they're naturally protected by the auricle of the ear. The face, we reflexively tend to shield our face as we know we're coming into an injury. So it's not typical to sustain accidental injuries on the face, the ears, and the neck.
I want to talk to you about the ears. You had mentioned on 377 an injury to the ear.
There's a small bruise right here.
I want to put 379 on the screen. Is that a better picture of that ear
It's a
injury?
little bit more apparent, but it is apparent, but again,
And what ear is that, the left or the right?
that's her right.
And what are we looking at in States Exhibit 380?
That is what's called a battle mark. It's a bruise that is behind the ear, so if you were to pull the auricle up to view behind the ear, that is right on the pinna, and then right up against the skull.
And is the injury to the ear concerning for child physical abuse?
Yes.
And why is it called a battle mark?
I honestly don't know.
You also observed Millie's right hip and buttocks area as well?
Correct.
And now put on the overhead what's been marked as States Exhibit 381. What is 381 showing?
So again, this is the right side of her body. This is her in a standing position. And here is right about at the hip, or what might be the waistline, and then extending down, somewhat extending to her buttocks and down to the top of her thigh. and that would be bruising that is, diffusely located. It's spread over a large area versus being localized in one small area, as might be expected from an accidental fall or injury.
At any time when you looked at this photograph, did you see anything that might have looked like a pattern injury?
Initially, what I documented was non-patterned injuries, but looking at it, I do see a clear, well-defined border here that could potentially be a loop mark. There's areas of sparing, which could potentially be caused by an object or some belt buckle that doesn't have anything in on the center. That's how you get patterned or injuries that have well-defined borders. Even a handprint can leave a pattern or an area of sparing if the hand doesn't come into complete contact with the tissue.
And was this injury concerning for child abuse, physical abuse?
Yes.
And why is that?
Again, the location, this is over very soft tissue, a lot of subcutaneous or fatty tissue. Typically when we have bone behind a bruise, the area bruises more easily because there's the force of the bone behind it. But when you talk about things like buttocks, thighs that are very fleshy areas of the body, they can withstand the impact at a greater force without sustaining injury or visible injury. So again, the diffuse location of the injury and the length that it covers the right side of her body, as well as some of the patterned markings, and as well as the tissue type that does not bruise easily. Those are all concerning.
Now, when you look at Millie's arm in connection with the other injuries to her body, does that arm become concerning to you for physical abuse?
Within the constellation of the entire exam and all of the injuries, yes.
I'm going to show you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit 382. And what are we looking at there?
These are her buttocks, obviously. These were just kind of macular, maybe ulcerated lesions that are kind of like a blister that's broken.
And were these injuries or these red marks that you see in State's 382, is that concerning for child abuse? Sorry, 382 on this.
Okay, this would not be. That's typically hygiene related, possibly if it was, it's from friction rub, could have been the undergarments she was wearing, so that would not be concerning.
I'm looking at the lights. Let's see. Have a seat. Now, would it be surprising to you that when you examined Millie on November 20th of 2015, she had less bruising and less petechiae than when she was examined on November 17th of 2015?
I would expect it to appear differently
And why is that?
because the evolution of any type of injury is going to heal, and as it heals, the appearance of it will change.
Those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Ross?
Good afternoon, Ms.
Jemison.
Jemison. My name is Corinne Mull. I just have a couple of questions for you. What caused State's Exhibit 380?
What caused it?
Yes.
I don't know.
What caused 379?
I don't know.
What caused 377?
I don't know.
What caused 378?
I don't know.
So it's fair to say, one more picture. 380?
I don't know.
What caused that?
Sorry, I don't know.
So it's fair to say that all these injuries that you've documented, these, for lack of a better word, injuries, you don't know how they got there, do you?
Correct.
Thank you. If I could just have a moment.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned that you had seen a pattern today, but you had not seen a pattern when you saw it on her body, correct?
What I had documented was non-patterned.
Non-pattern. And just today you decided some of them are patterned.
Well, sometimes at a further look or a second look, you have a more fresh eye, and so things that were not apparent on her physical exam are more apparent in the photographs.
Thank you.
Just briefly, Layla. Ms. Jimson, in your 22 plus years conducting examinations, over 1,000 examinations of children where there's suspected child physical abuse, was what you saw on Millie and what we just talked about consistent with non-accidental trauma?
Yes.
Now, the fact that the bruise to the right hip was, you saw non-pattern before, and now you say you see some pattern. Does that change your belief that it's consistent with non-accidental trauma or child physical abuse?
It would increase the concern.
Increase the concern. Thank you.
When you say high velocity, you're talking about something like a car accident, correct?
Not necessarily.
But that's a possibility, isn't it?
I would imagine that that would be considered a high velocity type of accident.
And seatbelts could create these injuries, could they not?
They're typically patterned into the shape of a seatbelt, so you usually see a seatbelt sign. But yes, that could cause a patterned type injury that would appear like a seatbelt.
Like this.
Not petechiae.
Now, you said that the arm was, as of itself, by itself, was not concerning for child abuse.
Correct.
Merely in the totality of circumstances.
Correct.
And what caused the big bruise on her arm?
I don't know.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Was there a reported history of a car accident?
No.
It's the first time you're hearing about a car accident today in court.
Yes.
And you said that the petechiae would not be consistent with a belt. Why is that?
With a seatbelt.
With a seatbelt.
A seatbelt, such as in a car accident, that would be more of a force type injury. So it would be an acceleration and a deceleration force type injury if you're pushed forward and then pushed back. And so it's called a seatbelt sign when people are in car accidents and sometimes there's abdominal trauma because of the lap belt, and sometimes you actually have a seatbelt sign. But again, it's patterned and it's in the position that a seatbelt would be.
So in this case, it's not consistent with a seatbelt.
Correct.
Thank you.
Isn't it true, though, Ms. Jimison, that if you came to an abrupt stop to avoid an accident occurring, that it could cause the petechiae that you see in both 331 and in the neck region, correct?
No, that is not.
378.
That is not correct.
Thank you. I'm moving forward.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. You can step down. And please witness the excuse.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And then you're free to go. Here calls next witness.
State calls Detective Harris Thompson.
Detective Thompson.
Sir, please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can put your hand down. Please state your true and correct name for the record.
Harris Thompson.
And sir, how are you currently employed?
I'm sergeant at the Henry County Police Department.
How long have you been with the Henry County Police Department?
12 years.
And you are now a sergeant. In 2015, what was your rank?
I was a child crimes detective at the time.
And were you assigned to a specific unit?
Yes, it was a special victims.
And are you post-certified?
I am.
And what does it mean to be post-certified?
Basically mandated through the state of Georgia to conduct law enforcement.
Now, I'm going to take you back to a case involving the death of Laila Daniel. Did you have any role in that investigation?
Yes.
What was your role?
Probably about 2 days after the incident where Layla passed away, I was named the lead detective in the case.
Now, did you actually respond to any portion of the investigation on the night of the incident, which was November 17th, 2015?
No.
So you did not respond to the hospital?
No.
And you did not respond to the home, correct?
No.
At that point, had you even been assigned to the case?
No, I haven't.
When you were assigned to the case, did you receive any information?
Yes.
And what was that? What, I guess, basic information did you receive about the case up to that point?
Basic information was that a child, that there was a sick call advising that a child had choked on a piece of chicken, and that's why she sustained, I guess, was going through a medical emergency. And then upon the first responders arriving there is when they noticed that there was egregious bruising about this child.
Now, when you were assigned the case, what was the first thing that you did as part of the investigation?
I attended a forensic interview for the decedent's older sibling.
And that would be Millie Place?
Yes.
Now, you said you attended a forensic interview. Where was that at?
Southern Crescent Sexual Assault Center in Hampton.
And did you actually conduct that interview?
No.
Someone else at the sexual assault center conducts it, correct?
Yes.
All right. However, are you present for the interview?
Yes. Well, I monitor from another room.
So are you present in the room when the child is actually being interviewed, or are you somewhere else?
No. The interview is usually conducted downstairs, audio, video recorded, and I'm upstairs watching this on the monitor.
Was anyone else present with you in the room watching on the monitor?
I believe it's a representative from DFACS.
After you scheduled this and attended this forensic interview, what did you do after that point?
One of the first things I guess I did was, just communicated with the investigative team of the other detectives and got information from them, as far as the steps that they took during this investigation.
And did you send, as part of your job as the lead, is that to assign other tasks to other people in the Henry County Police Department?
At times, but generally speaking, it was usually the supervision that details everyone out.
Did you obtain any records as part of your investigation?
Yes.
And what kind of records did you obtain?
Medical records, things like that.
Okay. Did you send anyone to any local businesses to obtain any records?
Yes.
And what business would that be?
I think that was called Gym Tech. It was a gymnastics or tumbling facility.
Okay. And what was the reason why you sent people out to Gym Tech?
Because there was an allegation that the decedent was attending gymnastics, and that's how she had sustained a leg break earlier on.
As part of your investigation, were you able to determine whether or not Ms. Daniel was ever enrolled in the gymnastics program?
Yeah, I found out that she wasn't enrolled.
Did you ever attend anything else that was scheduled for the investigation of this particular case?
As far as interviews or... Oh, yes, I did. I mean, I did have to go to the autopsy of the decedent as well.
Okay. And do you recall the date of the autopsy?
I believe it was 11/20/2015.
Okay. And do detectives always attend the autopsy?
Not always, but I'd say that on most occasions they did.
Okay. Now, when you are at the autopsy, what is your role there?
I'm sorry, what now?
When you are at the autopsy, what, if any, role do you have in the autopsy itself?
I'm just observing. I'm trying to get information, collect information for the investigation.
Okay. And when you were at the autopsy, did you observe anything?
Yes.
What did you observe?
First thing I noticed was just because they had the child nude on the metal table, and I just noticed that she was covered in bruises and scars.
Did you notice anything on her scalp?
Yes, there were like striation marks along the top of her head, like they had been done with a sharp object across the top of her head.
Let me ask you this: how were you able to see what was on top of her head?
Her hair was shaved at that time. They had her hair bagged up.
When you were at the autopsy, did you provide any information about your investigation to anyone there at the autopsy? DFACS was present. There were probably about 4, maybe 5 representatives from DFACS who were asking certain details about the investigation. Okay. Based upon the information that you had at that point, did you have any concerns about non-accidental trauma?
Non-accidental trauma?
He was not qualified as an expert. He was to determine non-accidental trauma.
If I can ask you this, did you have any concerns for child abuse at that point?
I did.
Okay. And did you continue to investigate at that point?
I did.
Now, at some point, did you conduct an interview with the defendant, Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall the date of that interview?
I believe it was 11/23/2015.
And that would be about 6 days after the death?
Yes, because the death was on the 17th. if I'm not mistaken.
And let me ask you this: to your knowledge, where were the defendants living when, at the time that you conducted the interview?
Still living at the incident location where they had been residing.
Okay. And your department had previously conducted a search warrant of that, correct?
Yes.
Now, did Ms. Rosenbaum come to the interview voluntarily?
Yes.
Did she have anyone with her?
Yes.
Who was with her?
It was her attorney at the time.
Now, was Ms. Rosenbaum free to leave?
Yes, she was.
Was she free to terminate the interview at any point?
Yes.
Was Ms. Rosenbaum under arrest at that point?
And I was non-consulted.
Did you make any promises to Ms. Rosenbaum for her to come in and give you this interview?
No.
Did you threaten Ms. Rosenbaum in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Was her attorney present during the entire interview?
Yes.
What was the purpose as far as this interview?
Basically just want to gather information, find out what happened.
I'm going to show to you what's been previously marked as State Exhibit 383. Do you recognize States 383?
Yes, that's the CD that I marked that I viewed as the interview for Jennifer Rosenbaum.
This is the interview with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. And is this a true and correct copy of that interview?
Yes.
Were there any modifications, alterations, or deletions made to the interview?
No.
And did you do anything to this CD to indicate that this is in fact the interview that you viewed?
I didn't do anything to it.
Did you mark it in any way to indicate this is the CD you viewed?
Yes, I did.
And how did you mark it?
With my initials.
Your Honor, at the time I move into evidence, States Exhibit 383.
383.
Do you in fact videotape the interview with Ms. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, can we make public this time?
Yes.
Your Honor, we do have the audio on these speakers isn't the greatest, so we do have transcripts available.